And as mentioned, the Iranian regime chooses a new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. He's the son of the previously assassinated leader Ali Khamenei. Meanwhile, a 7th U.S. service member dies in the war with Iran. And here for analysis is retired Captain Douglas Ernest, a U.S. Army war veteran, political analyst, and the author of The Spirit of a True Patriot. Thanks for your time, Captain. Does Khamenei's son, as regime leader, mean anything to U.S. strategy going forward?
Pleasure to be with you today. You know, there's three strategies that you can take from a military analyst perspective, and that would be, number one, he could be a caretaker of his previous father's work and be able to carry on his legacy of what he's done for the Iranian people, which has made them a power point in that part of the country and part of the world. He could also be a hardliner and give the U.S. a very, very, very hard time of doing business in that area. And finally, and we hope he will do, is become a pragmatist, and that is someone that will just take a very simplified, easy understanding approach and try to help the Iraqis in the economy, because their economy has been pummeled, and right now their country is being decimated by the bombing from Israel and from the United States.
And a 7th service member has died. President Trump has acknowledged there could be more casualties as the conflict goes on. How high is the risk for U.S. personnel in the region, even with the decline of Iran's military?
The risk is extremely high. When I fought in the war, we thought we had overwhelming force, just like we do right now. We had air superiority, and we had the same condition surrender, unconditional surrender as we did for Iraq, but we still lost thousands of troops in these warfare. Right now, the good thing is we don't have boots on the ground. I personally don't support boots on the ground, as most military analysts do not, because you're going to be in there fighting with the IRGC. But if we can have only air superiority and fighting from the skies, we're going to lose some soldiers, some forces, and many civilians, because these bombs are being leveled indiscriminately from Iran. They don't have target placement like the U.S. does, and they're not very skeptical of human casualties.
Captain Ernest, we heard War Secretary Pete Hegseth say that the U.S. is going for unconditional surrender of Iran. Is that within reach? Iran has a lot of firepower, but of course its capabilities have been degraded thus far.
You know, a great question. Number one, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said we're going to use our overwhelming force, which we have. He's also, the president is calling for unconditional surrender. But if we can get a bonus, and that's regime change, which we've not had so far, that would be the icing on the cake to help the Iranian people. Right now, Iran feels cornered. A hypothetical is that they're going to act on disparity, and they're going to unleash some of the worst things you're about to see that they're capable of. Now, with that being said, their missile launches are down about 80 to 90%. When this started, our analysts' expectations was they had around 2,500 ballistic missiles. They're now under 1,000, and a lot of their launching pads have been destroyed by our air superiority. So right now, they're going to be acting on a disparity, and we're going to hope that they don't feel a need to strike back and to hurt civilians and to inflict pain on their neighbors in that region of the world.
Where does the U.S.-Israeli operation stand right now? What are the targets?
You know, right now is just to take these ballistic missiles. Something that happened over the weekend that was a little bit controversial, and if you read the news feeds over the weekend, you saw that Israel had started taking out the fuel supply chains in that part of the world, and that's kind of a little bit hard, because that's going to put a little bottleneck in the strategy that's going on with the Trump administration right now. We don't want to isolate the Iraqi people. We want to help facilitate, hopefully, a power change over there. But right now, we're going after the ballistic missiles. We want to find this enriched uranium, which they're about 60% of the way towards a nuclear bomb after we did the bombing about 6 months ago. And finally, we want to find a way to hopefully limit the power of the IRGC. This is where the real power nuclei is in this country. We have the Supreme Leader, the Revolutionary Guard, and the Assembly of Experts. They have to all three work together to maintain power in this area. So if we can just penetrate one of these subsets of this leadership hierarchy, we could be able to affect massive change in the Middle East.
Senator Kevin Cramer, who's on the Senate Armed Services Committee, says the U.S. operation in Iran could serve as a deterrent to the Chinese regime in any potential attack on Taiwan, and that it also sends a message to Russia as it wages war in Ukraine. What are the broader ripple effects from this conflict beyond Iran's borders?
Well, that's another great question. Right now, the U.S. has been leading with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and President Trump with peace through strength. And that's something we've not done for the last 4 or 5 years in our country. We've always been reactive, not proactive. But right now, if we are making these strikes strategically around the world, that does deter further conflict and help advance our alternative motives across the world, which is to keep peace, defend the United States, and hopefully prevent future wars. But right now, the oil markets are in up level. The plan to have a hardline leader changed out has not come to fruition, and we don't have something else that's very, very important to this situation, and that is the variable of putting in another hardline leader is doubling down on Iraq's effect to fight back against President Trump. So I think everybody watching should stay tuned because it's going to be a very exciting week to see how this all plays out.
And Captain Ernest, do you have any other comments that you'd like to share with our audience, whether the United States and Israel have an intelligence advantage against Iran at this stage, or whether their operations are being effective based on any metrics?
You know, we are at 99% of their 1%. So we have completely annihilated their air defense system. We've annihilated their air force. We've sunk 32 ships in the ocean. The only thing they can really do is just seek havoc and put some speedboats in the Strait of Hormuz to continue the oil disruption. We have overwhelming force. We're calling for unconditional surrender, and we really want to put a moderate regime in there, if you will. So right now, my heart goes out to the loved ones of these fallen soldiers because that's the hardest part of watching this play out. We want to make sure that we limit the loss of life for our U.S. soldiers and for all these civilians that are in harm's way, that are the recipients of these bombs and all these casualties that are going on in this part of the world. We hope that this strategy by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, laid out by President Trump, will finally bring peace in the Middle East, and I think we're very close to that point.
Captain Douglas Ernest, thank you for coming on.
Pleasure's mine.